Okay, guys, well, welcome back to English 201. I'm gonna put some things in this video at the top, just as a kind of I don't know, in case you're only watching the videos. So I'm gonna have to do this on repeat, I think, because my students are still a little confused about some stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of, like I would do in class, I'm gonna remind you about something every day. I'm gonna try to remind you about some things at the beginning of this year. Which doesn't mean you can skip the first video because I'm probably going to go into Shakespeare also, but I just want to remind you of a couple of things. Number one, read the instructions at the top of the blog and on the side of the blog, right? When you first arrive at the website, there's some instructions at the top and the side. Read those instructions. Next up, you are my English 201 class, which means by the end of the semester, in order to get a grade, or in order to pass or not pass or get a grade or whatever, you need to get me 4 assignments. Now, right now, you've already done one of them, which was the paper about Kafka. You also have another one about Othello, and I actually put that up on the blog. So if you're wondering where that is, you can go find it by looking through old blog posts related to your class. Again, read the instructions on the top and the side. Next up is let's see. So you have 4 assignments. The next 2 after this, one's going to be on the Tempest, which when we get to Tempest, I'll give it to you then. And the last one's essentially like a research paper, and I'll show you how to do research on here. But that's going to involve you writing more about either Kafka or Othello or the Tempest. So we will, but I'll get that information to you, when I have it. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can declare your classes credit, no credit, which basically means that instead of getting a grade at the end of the semester, it'll just say you pass or you didn't pass. And what I'm learning about this is that means that if you pass the class, you go on to the next one, and if you don't pass, you got to take it again. But in either case, it doesn't have any effect on your GPA. So I'm really recommending that people do this. Unless you feel like you're on your way to the exact grade that you want. I imagine many of you would just feel like you're not doing your best work right now. So, declare the class credit, no credit, and tell me when you do. It's very helpful for me to know. See what you can, that's a big thing that'll make your lives easier, and so that's your little 2-minute thing. So by the end of this, so anyway, I think I said it already, so that's it. So what I'd like to do now, as normal for today, is to kind of keep going through Othello, and after this we're going to go through the Tempest, and I'm going to have a presentation on how to do research for your research papers that I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, and we will move forward with the semester, even though it's a weird, crazy time to be a person. Also, when you read the instructions to the top and the side, you'll notice that commenting on the blog is participating. I can see on the website more people are looking at the blogs than are commenting on them. So you really shouldn't be just looking at them and not saying anything, because I don't know I don't have a way of knowing if you're alive or not. So you might want to try to say something about these videos at the bottom of the blog post. And again, read the instructions at the top and the side. Okay, so let's get ourselves back into Othello and see what we can do for this. I said I was going to take you guys through Act 3, Scene 3 of Othello. I'm currently on page 18 of Othello. And the scene's actually not over yet. There's a whole thing, remember, where in the same scene, Desdemona comes in to talk to Othello, and she drops the scarf, and then Emilia, the handkerchief, and then Emilia picks up the handkerchief, and she gives it to Iago, who's very excited about it. And I don't really have a lot to say about those events, except that after she gives Iago the handkerchief, Iago has a very small thing that he says, again, to us, the audience. And I think that it's worth taking a look at. So I'm on page 18, middle of second column on page 18. So let's take a look at what it says. So Iago says, he says, I have a use for it, and Emilia exits. So he says, I will in Cassio's lodging lose this napkin and let him find it. Trifles light as air are to the jealous confirmation strong as proofs of holy writ. Meaning, if you're jealous, you'll see any tiny thing will make you feel like, aha, I was right the whole time. Because if you're a jealous person, you're expecting to get cheated on, and so any little thing will confirm it for you. How much will it confirm it for you? As strong as holy writ. That's the Bible, basically. It means that if you're a Christian believer, the Bible is, 100% truth, and for a jealous person, any little thing like a handkerchief is 100% truth. So just a really simple little metaphor comparing the handkerchief to the Bible in the sense that they will provide certainty. And there's an irony in that the Bible provides certainty that is good, if you're a Christian, and that the handkerchief provides certainty of evil. So that's a pretty simple one. But what happens next, the next line of the play is actually one of my favorite lines. I was going to say in the play. It's actually one of my favorite lines in all of Shakespeare. In fact, if you've seen my advertisement for the class, I think this line is so fantastic that I used it as a quote to advertise my course. Like I literally put it right next to my description of 201 because it's just one of my favorite little lines of dialogue. I don't have a ton to say about it. I just think it's fucking cool. So what they say here, he says, this may do something, meaning that the handkerchief is gonna fuck him up. The Moor already changes with my poison. Again, the Moor is Othello. And then he says this is one of my favorite lines. Dangerous conceits are in their nature's poisons, which at the first are scarce found to distaste, but with a little act upon the blood, burn like the mines of sulphur. It's a tremendous line. Dangerous conceits are in their nature's poisons. This to me, we talk about ideas in the play. Most people would not think this is an important idea in the play, but I think it is the most important idea in the entire play. Again, in terms of ideas, when I say ideas, please remember I mean that summary, metaphor, irony, ideas, and sound. And this to me is one of the play's biggest ideas, its biggest concepts, and its most interesting, powerful concepts. Dangerous conceits are in their nature's poison. A conceit is an idea. Oh boy, it's very windy and it's going to knock my copy of Othello somewhere crazy, but we will survive. Dangerous conceits are in their nature's poisons. Dangerous idea, it's a metaphor. I'll start with that. Dangerous ideas are like poison. Why are dangerous ideas like poison? Because you can take poison without knowing you can sneak poison to somebody and they'll drink the poison without knowing it and it'll destroy them. And dangerous ideas are also like a poison because people will get dangerous ideas in their heads and those ideas will wreck and destroy them without them being aware that it's happening. Like if you stab a guy in the face, he's going to notice you doing that. But if you poison a guy, he might have no idea. He might think you're his friend. He might, oh, thanks for the cup of coffee, and you poisoned all of his coffee. So he might not know. But with Iago, just talking to him, just putting the idea of jealousy, just being like, oh, I wonder if your wife is cheating on you. That's just a tiny little idea, but it acts like a poison and destroys Othello. And I mentioned this last time, but I'm going to mention it again because it's one of my favorite ideas and metaphors in the play. It's both. The metaphor is that Iago is like Shakespeare. Iago is a metaphor for Shakespeare. And that's very strange because you think about Shakespeare as being the greatest poet in the world, and you think of Iago as being a terrible villain, and they don't seem like they go together at all. But I hope that you'll notice that Shakespeare, I've said this before, but Shakespeare and Iago have in common a very important element, which is that they are able to control people's thoughts and emotions just through words. They don't do it by beating you up. They don't do it by poisoning you. They don't do it by stabbing you. They don't do it by mind control. They're not psychics. This is not an X-Men situation, but they literally just put words into your brain, and then it changes the way you think, and it changes the way you feel. So maybe you were feeling very happy, and then you saw Othello, and Shakespeare just used a bunch of words, and you're sobbing, you're crying like a baby, or you're angry at what happened to Desdemona, but he made you feel things. He controlled your emotions, and Iago does the same thing. He controls the emotions of Othello. One of the things I talked about with ideas also, and I hope you're noticing that here, is to always talk about author and audience. Always talk about author and audience. I can't tell you, I tell that to all my classes, and very few students really do it. I don't know if it's they don't understand me or they forget that it's an option. I think they forget it's an option because they're so used to talking about what happens to the characters. But don't just have, and it's fine, talk about what happens to characters, great. But also talk about what the author with the relationship between the author and the audience, right? Somebody wrote this story and they did it for a particular audience, and what effect does it have on the audience? And so here, what's really interesting is to think about the ways in which it's not just about what Othello does to Iago, it's that there's something similar about what Shakespeare is doing to you, and that's discussing the author and audience, and it's part of ideas. It's one of those things that's part of ideas, is to think about the ideas that the author is sending out into the world and the ideas that people get from it. And I really think one of the most interesting ideas is that words are extraordinarily powerful. Iago believes that. Shakespeare believes it. I believe it. See you in the next video.